There is a verse in Genesis most people skip right over, and it might be the most important one for the world we're living in now.
Why don't you make me feel at home? Greet me in my native language. How you doing? Good try. I like it. I like it. Hey, how we doing? It's one of those days. I cannot believe it's been raining so much. It's been crazy. I've been working on my lesson after Pastor was talking to me, and I was looking for the most obscure thing in the Bible to talk about, and I think I found it. How many of us read the Bible and skip over things like Leviticus? It's like you're reading Leviticus and you're going, what's the next chapter? What's the next chapter? What's the next chapter? There's a new book, yes. And because we have a hard time following it sometimes. But then there's these little nuggets that are found in different areas of the Bible. And I found this little nugget in Genesis that we kind of overlook. We kind of read over it and you go, yeah, okay, whatever. But we're going to talk about that today. Now, this verse was 4,000 years old, and yet it's still relevant to us today. So if you want to follow me, we're going to be reading Genesis 6, 1 through 4. But we're going to start out with the Genesis 4. I got to use my glasses. Thank you because I can't see squadola today. So before I even start, how many of you scroll on your phone? Like all the time or just sometimes? How about when you're do you look at Facebook and go, those dogs are really cute. They're funny too. How many people have seen those videos where the two dogs are talking, they're having a conversation? I love that. I think it's hysterical. I'm not even a dog person, but I think they're funny. They're AI generated, but they're very entertaining. Okay? We're watching the news and we're watching things unfold. Next minute, something's going on in the Middle East, our gas prices go up to $4.25. We can't follow all of this stuff. And we're sitting back and we're going, what is going on? Where is our world going? Why is it changing? And why am I here at this particular point? And we're here for specific reasons. And if you've heard me speak before, I'm all about we are here for a reason. We were put here at this time. We could have been born at any other time, but this is the time where we're here and we need to be doing something about it rather than scrolling through phones, hanging out, being selfish. And don't get me wrong, I'm just as bad as everybody else. I make my mistakes, and when I start reading, I get convicted of some of the things that I'm doing going, maybe I should be doing more for the Lord. And we're going to be talking about that today. But the verse I wanted to read, if you want to open it up to, it's 6:4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them, and they were heroes of old and men of renown. Remember that. Heroes of old and men of renown. Now you guys are sitting here going, Doc, what are you doing? What are you talking about Nephilim for? I heard the word. Is that in the Bible somewhere? Yeah, absolutely. It's in Genesis, believe it or not. And they're talking about fallen angels that have come down and fell in love with the women of this world. They had children, and then there's offspring, or the giants. They think that David fought a giant who was a Nephilim, which was Goliath. It's okay, so in the beginning, what happens is we end up here. But in the beginning of Genesis, when we read the first 3, because we have to do that, because in the Garden of Eden, things all started going awry. Eve offers the apple to Adam. Adam's eats the apple. So is it Eve's fault that Adam ate the apple? No, I believe it was Adam's fault because he didn't slap it out of her hand. He should have known what he was doing. And basically what I think happened was that Eve had this apple. She's holding this apple, and she looks at Adam and she goes, "You hungry?" He goes, "Uh-huh." So he ate it. We do that today. We make those same kind of mistakes. Then what happens? Their son kills his brother. All of this stuff starts crumbling around them. It starts there, and it just keeps going down and down and down, and God's just sitting here watching this. So in the first chapters of that, before we hit to chapter 4, it said, when human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, and the sons of God saw them, the daughters of the humans were beautiful, and they married any of them that they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal, and their days will be 125. We talk about the Nephilims. The Hebrews dealt with them as giants, the fallen ones. Here's what's interesting. I know this is uncomfortable to talk about, but something profound went wrong with humanity at that moment, where God's like, I'm really grieved about this. We need to take care of business. The corruption was complete, and the only family that was found righteous was Noah's. And God responded not passively, but decisively to deal with all of this stuff. Now, we live in a world full of giants. So the Nephilim were the giants of that day. But think about this. We have Facebook, which every time you scroll, speeds up an algorithm for you to look more at what you're looking at. We have AI-generated images that are fake. We have stories that are fake. They look real, but they're fake. How many of you have looked at a story on Facebook, Instagram, or the other social medias and go, oh, I didn't know that one died, or I didn't know that happened. And you look and it's like, that's a bunch of baloney. That really didn't happen. And we are now being drawn to these things that we think that entice us, these algorithms, and the more we get into it, the worse it gets. Then celebrities go, you know, you should have blonde hair, not dark hair today. Tomorrow it's going to be blonde hair. Maybe it's going to be red hair. Maybe it's going to be blonde, red, and brunette. But we're being told, and our culture is dictating who we are. In Genesis, the Nephilim were the ones, the men of renown, were the ones that were looked up to. They were the ones that were telling people, this is what you should look at. This is what you should think. This is what you should read. What's the difference in what's going on today versus what we were dealing with in Genesis? The devil is still doing his deed. He's still trying to corrupt us. He's still trying to corrupt the seed. Even though we know that he was created by God and then kicked out of heaven, he still thinks he can win. That's tenacity. You know you're going to lose, and you're going to fight until you think you can win. So every single one of us fall into this trap. The only thing that's changed between Genesis and now is technology. We're seeing it faster. It's coming so fast at us that we can't even absorb it. How many of you have an iPhone? Raise your hand. How many of you have an intimate relationship with Siri? Oh, come on. Am I the only one? I'm driving in the car and I'll hear something and I'll go, hey Siri, when did the Phillies win the World Series? She tells me. I'm constantly doing that. Unfortunately, there are several women that I call out to in my home. One is my wife, Kim. One is my office manager, who I spend most of the time with. Siri, Alexa, and now Claudia, who's Claude, if anybody knows AI, or Chat, I talk to them all the time, constantly, trying to figure out information. I love information. I love learning things. But it's dangerous. Because the information that you get may or may not be true. And sometimes it's not. How many of you use ChatGPT or one of the other AIs? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you use it just to write emails or literally work with it to do something that's productive? Raise your hand. Okay, so I use it as a means to help me write some of my books. I use it as my editor. I asked it one time, I was doing a study on inflammation, and I said, I need 10 articles on inflammation to quantify the subject that I'm discussing right now. Kicks out 10 articles, I look at the articles, half of them were made up. And I said to AI, I said, excuse me, you just fabricated these, why? Well, I thought you would find them interesting. I thought you would find them helpful in your research. It's not true. So why would I find something that wasn't helpful and believe it was real? So what would happen then if I'm writing my book and I use these and I cited them, literally made the citations exactly the way they were supposed to be. And I wrote this and put it in my book, and somebody comes along, another scholar reads them and goes, that's bogus, that's bogus. There might be everything in there perfect except for those references. And what happens? I become a liar. That's what's happening with us. We're constantly regurgitating what we see. Now, I've been working with the youth, and when I talk to them, everything revolves around TikTok, Instagram, not so much Facebook. But if it's not on TikTok, it's never happened. So when Jesus comes, he better have a profile, because nobody's going to know he's here if they don't see that. But as we go in this with Genesis, it says the Bible doesn't end at Genesis, and our story doesn't end at our hardest chapter. But what's interesting, that, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking about, okay, why did God put that chapter in the Bible? The Bible never gives us a strange verse just to confuse us. It gives us a verse to wake us up. Verses that are put in the Bible, like these little verses, the men of renown, like, why is that important to us? I don't know why that popped out at me when I was doing my study, and I said, we need to talk about this, because this is the same things that we're dealing with right now. That's how I felt while I was studying, by the way. And we're dealing with the same stuff over and over again. And how do we fight that? How do we combat that? So we're not defined by giants, okay? It's who we choose to follow. So Noah, God said, hey, Noah, listen. I'm not happy with what's going on. I'm not happy with the world, the way the world's going. I'm going to end it. But I want you and your family to keep moving on. I want you and your family, because I feel that you're righteous and believe you're righteous, I want to save you. So I want you to sit down and build an ark because a flood's coming. Think about that. If God spoke to you today and said, I want you to do something impossible, would you do it? Would you make a decision to listen to what God's saying, regardless of what the world is telling you? That's what this is all about. I believe that we're here to make differences. I keep saying that every time I speak. I believe that we are here to make differences. How are we going to make a difference if we're following the status quo? If we're overlooking something? If we're seeing something in front of us and not trying to make a change? There are things in our lives that come to us right in front of us, and we will walk around it than to try to make a difference. How many times have we met somebody that's in need and we just walk around them? How many times have we met somebody who's different and not made a difference in them by not saying hello? By not going, hey, how's your day going? How you doing? They tell us never to ask somebody how they're doing. Why? Not because they're going to tell us how they're doing, because do you really want to know what they're doing? How are you doing? Goes a long way. We don't do it to strangers, and we're sure not doing it to our own families. It's easier to give our child technology. Here's a babysitter. And what's that? Yeah. Yeah. This right here is controlling us. Everything that we do revolves around these. If I asked every single one of you to give me your phone and I'm going to hold it for an hour, we'd have a fight. You wouldn't want to give it up. Maybe you would for an hour. But what if I said, I'm going to take your phone and take it for a day? Take it for a week. Take it for a month. I can't survive without this. I can't wake up and not know what's going on my Instagram account. Before I find out what God wants me to do today, I need to see how I've done with my followers. How many clicks did I get on that post I made? I'm not getting on you. I'm telling you because I make these mistakes too. I really make these mistakes. You know, I put videos out on YouTube, and there are times I'm like, did anybody look at that? And when they don't look at it, I feel bad. Instead of going, hey, God, how's my day going today? What do you got for me? What is there to do? What do I need to do? Doesn't matter about my subscribers. Doesn't matter about my followers. I don't put the information up there for that anyway, but people do. How many people follow somebody on on YouTube? Raise your hand. Yeah. Because you're interested in what they have to say. Because it's more fun to listen to somebody else than it is to learn about myself. We're dealing with a lot of mental health. A lot of people are dealing with anxiety and depression. My office manager came to me today, and we were talking about her daughter, who is soon to be 8. And she was being influenced by the stuff that was coming up on her iPad. Now, these are parents that watch what their children look at. And they monitored it. But she was constantly on it, and they were seeing a shift in her attitude. They were seeing a shift in the way she was interacting with people. A shift that they didn't like. They also noticed that food had something to do with it. They were monitoring, they were looking, they were seeing, and they said, I'm taking the iPad away. We're not going to be doing sugar. We're going to be reading, and we're going to be doing other things. This little girl now is like, I really don't think I like looking at the iPad that much anymore. I feel so much better not looking at it. It made me angry. It made me worry. And we deal with this. These are our Nephilim today. The technology that we have is what is taking over our lives. God, they're telling us the way we're supposed to look. How many people have friends that have lost a ton of weight on Ozempic or one of the other things? Okay. How many of you have done that yourself? Raise your hand. Nobody? Okay. I'm asking a personal question. There's a reason for it. When we look into the mirror, do we still see the new person or do we see the old person? Women are worse for this. Some women look in the mirror, they've lost an exorbitant amount of weight. They look fantastic. Listen, you looked fantastic before that. But they look at themselves and they do not see the new person. They only see the old person. That's not everybody. But I've seen a lot in my practice where when they look in the mirror, they're still seeing what they saw before, even though there's been a huge transformation. That's because our society is allowing us, we're allowing our society to dictate what is normal and what is not normal. Every single one of you in this room is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. How do I know that? Because we were created by God in His image. So if God's love, God is beauty, we're all beautiful. But we don't listen to what God tells us. We don't know what God has for us because we never step forward and get to know Him, to understand Him. We can deal with a lot of this stuff that's going on if we take our time and listen to what God has to say. I know this is kind of deep, and I'm sorry about that, guys. Sometimes I get deep, but, hey. So, Noah's secret wasn't a strategy. It was proximity. He walked with God when everyone around him walked away from God. He heard the voices of God because he stayed close enough to hear it. He built what God told him to build, even when the whole world thought he had lost his mind. Can you imagine what that looked like every day building that ark? And people going by going, "Noah, what are you, an idiot? What are you doing? It's not even rained. What are you talking about, a flood?" It took him a long time to build this ark. So do you think the first time somebody said that, he was like, "Man, am I doing the right thing? Am I stupid?" Or the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time somebody said that. I think while he was getting closer to God and closer to finishing, and somebody chastised him for building the ark, he was like, "See ya. Won't want to be ya. Like, listen, come on, there's room. Come on, there's room." And everybody's going, "Nah, I don't think so." That's the way we have to be. That's the way we have to look at things. When things don't look right, I got this. Because God's got this with me. I've said this over and over again. I'm dealing with some things. Still waiting on God to move. Still believing God's going to move. I'm still waiting. It's not happening. I've been told I've been crazy. Like, how could you trust God for something like that? Because I believe He's going to do it. I believe He's going to make a change. I'm so excited about it. Today. Notice how I said today? There are times when I'm not. There's times when I'm just like, why are you forgetting about me? I feel like Noah. Why is this happening to me? Why am I being chastised for something I'm doing right? I have opportunities to do things that do not have integrity. I refuse to do that. I would rather not get than lose my integrity. My integrity is so important because it's something God had given me. And that's what Noah did. Noah had that integrity to continue on. What happens in the end with Noah? Noah gets in the ark, gets all the animals in the ark, gets his family in the ark, and shuts the door. Right? No. Who shut the door? Exactly. So if God shuts that door, and he did it for Noah, why isn't he going to do it for me? Why isn't he going to do it for you? Why are we listening to what everybody else is telling us is right, telling us what we need to be doing, and not listening to God? I don't know the answer to that. That's your answer. That's something you have to figure out. You have to think about, am I going to make a stand? And that's what it is. Are we going to make a stand, be Noahs of our day, be protectors of ourselves, and be protectors of our family and everyone we love? We are a family here. We protect each other here. We have our families outside of here, but we are the body of Christ. We're here for a reason. Why are we in this? Why are you here Wednesday night listening to me? Why are you here at this church? There's church on every corner in this down here. Why aren't we at another church? Because we need to be here. Why is Pastor Shrum here? Because he needs to be here. He's our shepherd. We trust him. We love him. What he does matters to us. You talk about a man of integrity, that man's got integrity. To the point where I bet you he feels like Noah sometimes. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you listening to what they have to say? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do what look at how they're building a bigger church. Let's try that. He's not going to do that. He's doing what God told him to do. And he's teaching us to do what God tells us to do. I've taken a lot of chances in my life, and I made a lot of mistakes. Some of the coolest things I've ever done was listening to what God told me. I mean, doing like things that people thought I was insane to do. I guess a lot of people think I'm insane sometimes, but insane on doing what is right. Every single one of us here has that opportunity. You're going to be able to do things that you never thought that you could do. So we are here, and we are the Noahs of our age. You were not placed here in this generation by accident. You were placed here on purpose. God didn't look down on 2026 and say, well, this generation's a mess. I hope someone survives. No, he placed you here with your history, your gifts, your struggles, your faith, specifically for this cultural moment. You are the Noah of your neighborhood, your family, and your workplace. If we act like Noah, we can make huge changes in our lives. That means the most important thing you can do right now is not outshout the giants. I'm sorry, not to outshout the giants. It's to win the argument on social media. It's not to have the perfect comeback and the most viral post. It's to stay close to God, build what he tells you to build, live in a way that when the people around you look at your life, they see something they can't explain without God. Matthew 5:16. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Here's a couple of principles. Guard your ear gate. Listen to what God has to say. Don't turn around and go, no, I can't do that. Guard that. Number 2, build in the right direction. Noah built the ark in spite of no flood. He knew what God wanted. And the third thing is, don't become a giant. We have tendencies to become giants and tell people what they should be doing, how they should be acting, how they should be dressing, what things are important to be doing, and we become the giants to those people. When we become giants to people, just like the Nephilim, we're taking advantage of them. We're not helping them. We're not giving them anything that they can use. We're not bringing them closer to God. We're actually pushing them away. And if we want to have a relationship with God, and we want others to have the relationship with God, you better be talking about that. You better be professing that. If I'm talking about it here and I'm doing something out there that's really different, oh man, I hope somebody would tell me, you screwed up, Doc. You made a mistake. You said this and you're doing this. I need to be put in check. I don't want to be that person. I want to be that Noah where I'm living by faith. You're seeing me living by faith, regardless of my circumstances, and then turning around and going, I watched him go through that. If he can go through that, I can go through that. I can be that Noah with the faith. I'm having trouble about my family. I'm having trouble with my children. I'm having trouble in my marriage. I'm having trouble in my business. I'm having trouble in my finances. We're all going through that. Especially when you go to get gas lately. You're going like, are you kidding me? It's like, I feel like I'm feeding a monster when I put gas in my car. It's like it just keeps sucking it up. And I have one of those, I have a small car. It's like, man, how many people drive a truck? I feel sorry for you. Putting all of that gas in there. But in reality, I want you guys to take, if you take anything home today, take the fact that we're still going through situations. We're going to go through situations regardless of what it is. How are we going to deal with it? How are we going to stand up, face our friends and our family, and when it's all said and done, we can go, I ran that race. This is what God did for me. This is what God is going to do for you. That's where we want to be with that. And I'm not so sure we totally understand that. The greatest act of spiritual warfare is a life fully surrendered to Jesus Christ. How does the story end? At least the first chapter of it. The flood came, the giants fell, and through the faithfulness of an ordinary man, his family, God preserved the human story. And from the story, the bloodline continued eventually through Abraham, David, to Mary, to the manger, and to the cross, where Jesus Christ defeated every giant once and for all. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish. The giants of our age are loud, but they're temporary. Every empire built on something other than the truth of God eventually falls. Every culture that narrates, that rejects the image of God, eventually collapses under its own weight. We, right here, are in control of all of that. But the Word of God will stand forever. Heaven and earth will pass away, but the words will never pass away. Matthew 24:35. Here's the invitation. It's not fear, it's faith. This week I want to challenge you guys. I want you to do one concrete thing. Audit your noise. For 3 days, figure out what you're listening to first. Is it your friends, social media, anything like that? Or you're listening to God? Because you will make a life change. Just like that little girl says, I don't want to deal with that iPad anymore. I don't want to eat that sugar anymore because it makes me feel bad. I guarantee if you do for 3 days and sit and figure out which is more important, where are your priorities? Who are you following? How are you following? and then realize, is it God or is it everything else? And if you flip that switch and change it and say, I'm going to follow God, I'm going to make an effort to wake up in the morning, instead of looking at my Instagram account, I'm going to read God's word. I'm not telling you to sit down and read the Bible in a week. That's not what I'm telling you. I'm saying start slow. Read a verse or two a day. See if it doesn't change your perspective of what you're going through. I didn't say it was changing your situation. It'll change your perspective. If you change your perspective, it'll grow your faith. If it grows your faith, you'll overcome the obstacles. If you overcome your obstacles, you become a conqueror.